Terminator Dark Fate is the latest entry in the Terminator franchise, with Deadpool director Tim Miller directing this entry, and series creator James Cameron returning to produce, and having also worked on the story. This is the first film since Terminator 2 to have James Cameron involved in any way. Plus, Linda Hamilton is returning as Sarah Connor, so if Skydance and Paramount needed to get people interested in another Terminator movie, this is definitely the best way to do it. If you've followed this channel for a while, you'll know that Terminator 2 is one of my all-time favourite films. It was a childhood-defining movie for me, and I enjoy both the theatrical and special edition cuts. Dark Fate picks up 20 years after the end of Terminator 2 Judgment Day, ignoring all the other sequels. Terminator 3, Terminator Salvation, and Terminator Genisys are all considered an alternate canon now, which is perfectly fine. Although I did enjoy Terminator 3, I am completely fine with ignoring the others. In Dark Fate, a new Terminator called the Rev 9 is sent back in time to kill Dani Ramos, a woman with great importance to the survival of the human race in the war against the machines. To combat the Rev 9 and protect Dani, the human resistance sends back an enhanced super soldier called Grace. In order to defeat the Rev 9, Dani and Grace must work together with an older Sarah Connor and a T-800, who are connected to the fate of these new characters. Now off the bat, I really enjoyed Terminator Dark Fate. This is above and beyond the quality of the other Terminator sequels after Terminator 2. As a film about getting back to the basics of the Terminator franchise, about being on the run from this unstoppable killing machine, this was a welcome treat. Sure, it doesn't reach the heights of Terminator 1 or 2. I don't think anyone was really expecting this to be as good as those films, especially if James Cameron isn't directing, but this is a movie that understands both the legacies of Terminator 1 and 2 while finally evolving the mythology of the franchise and progressing into unknown territory as a means of passing the baton onto the next generation. After a number of disappointing Terminator sequels, it's great to see a Terminator movie that takes major risks with the mythology and lore built up over the years. These risks won't work for everyone though, and there's a big choice made early on in the film that will likely either make or break the film for some people. It's a choice that will be divisive amongst fans, and it's hard to go into more detail without getting into spoilers. But for me personally, I believe that the risks and choices made with Dark Fate worked for the storytelling and especially the characters. Director Tim Miller has come forward in the past and said that T1 and T2 have both been huge influences on him as a filmmaker, and has a lot of reverence for those films. So watching Dark Fate, you get a lot of the love and attention put towards making the classic elements like Linda Hamilton and Arnold Schwarzenegger shine, while also doing great work with all the new additions. The plot structure is very similar to Terminator 2, which is fine, because the plot of Terminator 2 was very similar to the structure of Terminator 1. James Cameron has admitted before that Terminator 2 is essentially a remake of Terminator 1, so it makes sense that Tim Miller would go back to the structure of those films to get people reinvested in what worked about this franchise. This keeps Dark Fate fairly lean and focused, essentially being a 2-hour-long chase from a killing machine, with a number of flashbacks peppered in throughout. Action scenes are fast-paced and keep the story on the move, which is what you want. The action rarely stalls to keep characters in one location for too long. The movie still allows for some quieter character moments though, which I really appreciated, especially with fleshing out Sarah Connor in this new timeline, with her trying to find her purpose after the events of Judgment Day. Linda Hamilton is fantastic as Sarah Connor, playing a version of the character that we haven't really seen before. She's obviously much wiser, but the last 20 years have taken a toll, and it's great to see Linda Hamilton continue to bring that grounded and relatable approach to the character, despite some of the over-the-top things that happen in the movie. Dark Fate makes the wise decision of making her the protagonist over the T-800. She also gets a sardonic wit in the film, where she actually has a number of pretty hilarious lines. Arnold is wonderful as Carl, a T-800 that has aged over the years in the present timeline. Because the skin on the outside of the T-800 ages, that means Arnold in his 70s can still come back and play the character. What's done with Carl in the film is pretty interesting, as we see what happens when the T-800 no longer has any orders. Plus, Arnold gets some great lines in the film that got some big laughs. A lot of praise needs to go to the new cast as well. Mackenzie Davis, Natalia Reyes, and Gabriel Luna are all great in the film, especially Natalia Reyes, who stands out as someone to keep an eye out for in the future. Gabriel Luna is an awesome Terminator as the Rev 9 who can duplicate into two forms. Finally, we have another Terminator that creates that impending sense of doom. The T-1000 was a great villain because he was terrifying and posed a real threat to the heroes. In Dark Fate, the characters have a number of close calls with the Rev 9, making him feel all that more imposing. Although I have to admit, by the time that you've seen the Rev 9 heal itself repeatedly, much like the TX in Terminator 3, the effects can feel a bit repetitive after a while, and it becomes a case of waiting for this guy to just die already. With Tim Miller directing, you're going to get a lot of focus on visual effects and CGI. Now, Terminator 2 is considered a landmark film in CGI history with the creation of the T-1000, but we also saw that CGI cut together with a lot of practical stunts and practical molds and effects created by the late Stan Winston, which is why that movie still looks fantastic. The blending of those tools helped T2 age wonderfully. Sure, the CGI is a bit dated by today's today's standards, but it's a good looking movie. Dark Fate focuses more heavily on CGI, and while the VFX work done is amazing, the overuse of CGI can detract from mistakes in certain scenes, particularly the big cargo plane action sequence that's in the trailers. Obviously that's all CGI, and while Tim Miller does make an effort to keep cutting to the human actors and smaller set to make it all feel relatable, the whole notion and execution of the action sequence feels over the top and cartoonish, compared to how relatively grounded Terminator 1 and 2 are. If the cargo plane sequence had been reworked into something more practical and believable, I think that would have done wonders for the film. That being said, a lot of the action and CGI is still fun to watch, and with this getting an R rating in the United States, like Terminator 1 and 2, that means we get more blood and violence, without anything having to be toned down for a PG-13 rating. Plenty of F-bombs in this film too. Junkie XL did the music for Dark Fate, and there's been a great effort to update Brad Fiddel's Terminator theme, and integrate it with Junkie XL style, with some sections definitely feeling reminiscent of his Mad Max Fury Road score. Terminator Dark Fate is a welcome return to form for the Terminator franchise, which for over 25 years has had a lot of trouble in maintaining quality and living up to the original two James Cameron films. While Dark Fate isn't as good as T1 or T2, there is a lot to love and have fun with here, with a lot of potential to see where the franchise goes from here. Not everyone is going to appreciate all the choices made in Dark Fate, but for the first time in a long time, I am excited to see where another Terminator sequel goes. Terminator Dark Fate gets an 8 out of 10 from me. Guys, I hope you liked this review. If you want to see more reviews just like this one, stay right here for your mono fix. Bye guys.